What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Drew's Basely here again to talk to you guys about Marvel Spider-Man 2. How do I like this game compared to the first one? Did the story captivate me? What would I have liked to see done differently? And where will the story go from here? Let's find out. But first and foremost, if you've been watching my content for a little bit, please consider subscribing. I post content weekly, and you don't want to miss a thing. Thanks. This video will contain some spoilers, so if you plan on going in fresh, then click off the video now. This is your warning.
Not a word on my article yet.
Game length, 8 out of 10. Now typically, when I do these reviews, I tend to make my time spent with the game a little bit longer, but since Marvel Spider-Man 2 is all Kraven killer, and no filler, I felt like 50 hours was enough time spent with the game, considering I've already got my platinum. I've 100%ed the game on amazing difficulty, and I'm currently halfway through my ultimate difficulty playthrough within that time. Just to give y'all an idea on the length of this game, on my first playthrough on amazing, which is essentially the normal difficulty, I completely 100% of the game and got my platinum trophy finished by the 28th to 30th hour of playtime. Now depending on circumstances, some people might be able to finish the game from anywhere from 15 hours on a low end and 30 hours on a high end, just depending on what everyone wants out of the game. For some people, that might be a tad short for $70, but I felt like the value was fair considering the quality bar was so high. After completing the game, I was left not only satisfied but blown away. Now, I can't lie, this game is super short, but man, it goes hard. Story/progression, 9.5 out of 10. The story in Marvel Spider-Man 2 follows both Peter Parker and Miles Morales, following the events of both Spider-Man's prior solo albums. This time, there's a new threat in New York City, in the form of Kraven the Hunter and everyone's favorite symbiotic skin suit, Venom. Peter Parker, shortly after the game's opening, finds out that his best friend Harry Osborn has returned, and to much surprise, is doing well health-wise. Considering he's been diagnosed with a degenerative and potentially life-threatening disease, Harry, under the supervision of his father Norman Osborn and Dr. Kirk Connors, aka the Lizard, have found a mysterious cure to his terminal illness, and has since put his sickness behind him, and all seems well with their friendship, until Kraven the Hunter shows up in New York City and starts the Great Hunt, where Kraven hunts down and kills supervillains within the Spider-Man lore. Within that time, Miles Morales has his own side of the story, which intertwines with Peter's, considering he's battling with demons relating to the loss of his father, and really just trying to fill in and step up wherever Peter falls short as Spider-Man. Overall, this narrative is just simply incredible. The main story within Marvel Spider-Man 2 is nothing short of fantastic, and I would recommend completing every collectible and side quest within the game, not only to extend the runtime, but to get the full context on the lore and the story within the game. Side content takes about 10 hours worth of the runtime, and is filled with bonus villains and sets up some storylines down the road, which I'm really excited to see play out within the next entry. My only major complaint is that although you get lots of new villains in this entry, I would have liked to see more than what we've gotten, and I hope that DLC will branch out and make this game seem even better in that department. I felt like they had far too many returning villains, and although it makes sense in the context of the overall story, it was kind of a huge letdown for me. Not to mention at certain moments, side content can feel pretty bare bones, and considering we have two Spider-Mans in this game, you're constantly being forced to flip-flop in order to progress certain storylines. I feel like this would have worked better if we just had more content within the game, but for what we got, it was a good time. Sharing upgrade points between Peter and Miles also didn't seem to get in the way much, considering the game totally overhauled the abilities and upgrades by streamlining the majority of them into one, or having the new abilities unlocked through story missions rather than something you would purchase. Now that's not to say that they don't have abilities that you can buy with your points, but I found the majority of those abilities were quickly trumped by something far superior by just progressing the story. Graphics and performance, 10 out of 10. Now much like most other games, this game is split into two separate graphics modes, performance and fidelity. Performance mode targets 60 frames per second, while the latter, Fidelity, targets 30 frames at 4K resolution. And if you have a TV with VRR support, you can enhance these modes even further, up to 120 frames. Now, typically I'm a performance mode kind of guy, but I have to say that the game has some notable downgrades in performance mode, and I found the overall experience better in Fidelity mode. Now, I'm no technical guru, you can go watch Digital Foundry for that, but frames seemed higher around 40 frames a second, and much more smooth compared to other experiences in Fidelity mode. Combat, 10 out of 10. Now, if you're a fan of the fast-paced action from the first game, you'll be happy to hear the majority of the combat remains the same. They keep majority of the substantial upgrades you gain in Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales, while adding in new upgrades and abilities to make the overall experience still feel fresh and substantial. Everything seems more streamlined this time around, but they cut out a lot of the fat, from both games, and somehow they pulled it off, which was something I was surprised with considering the two main characters we play as this time around. The overall button layout for combat was essentially totally overhauled, with heavy emphasis on L1 and R1 in combination with X, circle, square, and triangle buttons, to use each Spider-Man special abilities and gadget abilities. There's no longer the ability to swap out the L3 and R3 Rage Mode abilities this time around, and instead is designated to one super strong ability for each Spider-Man. Throughout the game, this ability will change, but isn't interchangeable. Outside of that, you'll obtain some great surprises from progressing through the story. QuickTime events do return, but this time they are less annoying and have fewer button mashing moments, and they're farther apart in gameplay. Within the game, you'll play with multiple characters, and each one feels fleshed out and strong, and it's something I really enjoyed and made my overall experience with the game really fun. Bosses, 9 out of 10. Compared to prior Spider-Man games, this game adds a health bar to the boss fights, and underneath that health bar are red balls, which splits these fights into set pieces. So in order to truly take down one of these bosses in the game, you'll have to beat them sometimes 3 to 4 times to actually pull away the win. Now, this is something that makes sense in a cinematic purpose, and I do think overall this is something I thought was a positive for the game. But I will say that even with the health bars, there's really not much challenge to these boss fights. The real victory behind these fights is where the story goes next, and the spectacle behind the fights themselves. Many times, while fighting the bosses in the games, I felt blown away. They really did go above and beyond, but if you're looking for even the slightest bit of difficulty, I recommend playing in the higher difficulty setting. Traversal, 10 out of 10. Now, probably the most important aspect in any Spider-Man game, the traversal. Almost all the traversal and movement abilities remain in this game, and they make you feel like an experienced Spider-Man at the gate, which is something I enjoy in a good sequel. Majority of the traversal upgrades, once again, were streamlined, and they even added in significant changes to the game in the open world in the form of slingshots and wind tunnels/vents. These are things that make the new wingsuit ability shine, and considering the open world is much larger than before, it speeds up traversal, making it much quicker to get from point A to point B. Personally, I'm more of a swinging guy, but near the end of the game, I found myself utilizing the wingsuit a ton, and it's something I really did love within the game. Fast travel returns as well, and this time, with the power of the PS5, once you unlock a district, you'll be able to point and click to exactly where you want to go instead of one designated area for fast travel. You can literally go wherever you want within the game, within the span of 2 seconds. It's fantastic. Unlockables, 10 out of 10. One of the best parts of being Spider-Man is the suits, and let me tell you, they did not disappoint in that department. Along with 80% all new suits themed around the game and things within the Spider-Man and Marvel lore, they also added some returning favorites from Miles Morales and Spider-Man Remastered, and tons of everyone's favorite suits from the movies. Now, majority of that is to be expected, but they also added in shaders for majority of the suits to really customize them to your liking. I loved this within the game, and it kept me engaged with side content and beating everything as I unlocked them within the game. Now, I won't showcase majority of them here, because I feel like they're better for you to find and discover on your own, but just trust me when I say it's amazing. Like, for real, no pun intended. Difficulty in New Game Plus, 8 out of 10. Now, I've already stated earlier that I felt like this game was far too easy, and yes, I do feel like it's too easy. Aside from that, damage balance really hits hard if you go higher in difficulty, so they never really find that sweet spot for me. But I am a fan of games that emphasize trial and error, and I can appreciate having to hit a good combo, so for me, it's something I can look past and improve on my skills. Majority of the missions and side quests I completed on my first attempt, and I never really felt like I got stuck, not even at the final boss fight, which I can understand in a story-based game, but as a Souls and survival horror fiend, I wish they would crank that up, and it would service me more. Now, upon launch, this game was without a New Game Plus, and considering I've already 100% the game once is a real bummer. I would love to continue that save file and keep my suits. Fingers crossed we get DLC soon. Also, going back and adapting a playstyle I've gotten good at, just to have my abilities stripped away from me because I'm forced into another new game to play again doesn't feel great. Once this game gains New Game Plus, I hope they add in more suits and upgrades, much like prior games, and they make it special and worth its time investment. We spent $70 on this game, and I expect it to be added for free, considering it should have already been within the game, but for now, I'll let them cook. Final score, 9.3 out of 10. Overall, Marvel Spider-Man 2 really impressed me. Traditionally, Sony played it safe again, but it paid off. In the next Spider-Man, I would love to see them take more risks, and maybe change things up even more. But for now, I'll be looking forward to whatever DLC Insomniac Games will put out. For $70, the game is short, but it's quality over quantity. Personally, I'd rather have a game where every single second is engaging, but ends far sooner than a game jam-packed with filler content. I'm looking at you, Ubisoft. The graphics are incredible, it's masterfully optimized on the PS5, and the story does not disappoint. This is the pinnacle Kraven and Venom story, and I think it's going to be very hard going forward for anyone to top this. Maybe it's recency bias, but I think this game will stand the test of time, and will go down to become one of the best Spider-Man sequels of all time. Now thank you guys so much for staying the entire time. Spider-Man 2 is incredible. It's not perfect by any means, but it sure is hard to argue against considering I had so much fun playing this game. Now let me know in the comments section, which Spider-Man do you guys like to play as more? Do you guys think this game was too short? Do you guys agree with my takes? Let me know all of it in the comments. Now please remember to like, comment, subscribe, do anything you guys can to help me. I am just one guy, and I make these videos because it is my passion. This has been Drew Spacely. Peace. Okay, let's see, Peter. Let's see what we're gonna get here. Let's see what they're working with. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. That shit's sick. Oh yeah, my boy looking fresh as fuck. Fresh as fuck.